It's my privilege and pleasure now to introduce one of this year's student participants, Sarah Smart.
Welcome everyone to this year's WiTNESS Theater performance. Every year on Yom HaShoah, we remember and commemorate the horrors that occurred during the Holocaust. As time goes by, it becomes more important to share the stories of what happened. Starting this past September, everyone you will see on this stage today began meeting once a week, getting to know each other and sharing their lives. The adults have gifted us with the stories of their childhood, how they survived through the war, and how they rebuilt afterwards. Through all of it, we have shared laughter and friendship as we went through warm-ups, dinner, and acting exercises. Of course, we shared sadness and tears as well. One of the incredible facets of WiTNESS Theater is that we were all there for each other, no matter what. But most of all, we've gained a new perspective on our lives and lessons that will stay with us forever. Never take for granted what you have been given, and a kindness, no matter how small, can sometimes make the biggest difference. At one of our first sessions, the whole group wrote a story together. Each person said one line, adding on to what was said before, but we also had to be mindful to say something that would enable the story to continue. We had to continue the story to make sure that the exercise worked, but we also have to make sure to continue the story of these adults for the next generation. As students, we have to remember all that has come before us, everything that our parents and grandparents and their parents and grandparents went through in order for us to be here today. And we have to make sure that we are building a world where it is possible for ourselves and future generations to thrive, that something like the Holocaust will truly never happen again. I would like to thank everyone who has made WiTNESS Theater possible. Thank you to SAR for giving us the opportunity to be here today. Thank you to Rabbi Birnbaum and the entire tech crew for making these stories come alive. Thank you to the WiTNESS Theater staff members who have worked so hard throughout this entire year to put the program together. To Jess, thank you. You have worked day and night from the beginning, and we would not have had the privilege of being a part of the last 8 months without you. To my fellow WiTNESS Theater students, thank you for going through WiTNESS Theater with me. I'm so grateful for all of the friendships that have been made, and to have the knowledge that after this, we will still have each other. To the adults, I don't have words enough to thank you for all that you have given us. Thank you for letting us enter your lives and become a part of your stories. Your stories have become our stories, and we will always remember them. After living with these stories, we now share them with you. I am proud to present our WiTNESS Theater performance.
Holocaust is not just concentration camps.
It's not just death marches.
Or gas chambers.
It's war. And war looks like a lot of different things.
War is not just one story.
War is hunger.
War is sickness.
War is about being displaced.
War is being invisible.
War is being visible.
War is loss of childhood.
War is survival.
War is pain.
War is questions. So many unanswered questions.
War is never being the same again.
As much as you try, you are never the same again. Yana, 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 nine, nine, nine.
Hannah was born in Lubomel, Poland in 1933. She lived with her mother, father, and younger sister, Sarah. Hannah's father was a carpenter who made furniture, and her mother was a seamstress.
HaShoah was Hannah's real name, and she had the reputation for being quite the jokester of the family.
Hannah's early childhood was filled playing outside, climbing trees, and going to her grandparents' home on Friday nights for Shabbat dinner, and enjoying the delicious chicken noodle soup her grandmother would make. Hannah still remembers.
But Hannah's life changed in 1940 when her father was arrested and put in jail for treason. He belonged to the Communist Party.
Hannah still has memories of visiting him in jail.
Are they feeding you?
A little.
Do they take you outside?
Hardly.
Are you warm enough? Chasi, say hello to your father.
Mom, I can't visit Pop in jail anymore. I just can't stand to see him looking like that.
He was barely recognizable.
Skinny, sick.
Hardly any energy.
He looked like death to me.
Mrs. Lantman, for you and your children's sake, we highly recommend changing your last name.
Change our last name?
It won't look good to the government if you keep your husband's last name. He's a communist, and by default, so are you and your children.
That is my husband, and I will stand with him. I will not be changing our last name.
Suit yourself.
The punishment for not changing their last name was being sent away by the government. Little did they know this is what would save their lives.
We were sent to Kazakhstan in April of 1940. It took a month by train. I was 8 and my sister was 2. The 3 of us would share one bed made out of hay. At first I went to school, despite not knowing Russian, while my mother stayed home and took care of my little sister. But then she stole my shoe. Do you smell something burning? Wait, is that my shoe?
My baby needed a shoe because she didn't have any. And then she was cold, so I warmed her up in the oven.
This was Hannah's only pair of shoes, and now they were burnt. So from here on out, she stopped going to school.
Hannah's mother also needed to work, so Hannah stayed home to look after her younger sister.
My classmates were kind enough to bring me the lessons I'd missed at school. That's how I taught myself Russian.
The first year in Kazakhstan, Hannah's family received a letter from her father. They were so relieved to hear from him. He had been moved to a labor camp in Poland. She remembers he wrote,
When the war ends, I will find you.
For the next 4 years, Hannah and her mother continued to write letters through the Red Cross, but they heard nothing back.
Life at this point was really just about survival. Although they were free, hunger and sickness became their own personal war.
But Hannah, her mother, and younger sister stuck together and were determined to make it through.
In 1944, Hannah's mother was hospitalized for malaria and typhoid. She remembers visiting her in the hospital.
Mama, where's your pillow? You need a pillow for your head. Don't worry, I'll get you one.
The hospital was 7 kilometers away from their home, but Hannah was determined to take care of her mother. She walked all the way back home, grabbed one of the only pillows they had, and walked 7 kilometers back to the hospital, carrying the pillow on her head.
Her arms hurt. She was freezing. But Hannah was determined to ease her mom's pain, and bringing her that pillow was the only way she knew how.
Strength. Courage.
Bravery.
Determination.
Willpower. Somehow, she did get better.
Hannah, her mother, and younger sister survived hunger and sickness alone in Kazakhstan.
After the war, they got word from the Red Cross that Hannah's father had died of sickness in the labor camps.
They also found out that while they were trying to survive in Kazakhstan, in 1942, the rest of Hannah's family was rounded up. They were taken from their homes, forced into the forests, and shot.
Years later, my husband painted a picture of that forest. It captured the feelings of what it must have been like to know you were walking towards your death. Just you, the forest, and your mortality. Being sent away to Kazakhstan saved my life.
I am a survivor. I survived sickness and hunger. I married my husband, Sander, in 1955. We had 2 children, Dorothy and Arnold, and 4 grandchildren and 1 great-grandson. Currently, I am involved in Holocaust women, Holocaust survivors organization where I am a treasurer.
Ralph was born in Frankfurt, Germany in 1926. He lived in a lovely apartment with beautiful cherry trees in the backyard.
Ralph's father passed away when he was only 2, and he didn't have any other siblings. So really, this story is about Ralph, his unbelievably strong mother, and so many unanswered questions.
Growing up, Ralph's best friend was Walter. They were the best of friends.
Ralph and Walter would chase each other up and down the church stairs and play hide and seek for hours.
You're it. Gotcha.
No fair. I'm in the safe zone.
You can't just make up where the safe zone is.
All right, fine. Can we change the game, though? Let's play hide and seek.
Okay, but I want to hide first.
Okay.
They played like this for years, until one day in 1934, everything changed.
Where have you been? I've been waiting for
Ralph,
you.
I can't play with you anymore.
What do you mean?
I don't know. I just can't.
But why?
It's what my father said. He says if he sees us playing together again, I can get into huge trouble. And you're a Jew.
Soon after,
Sorry, Ralph.
And that was the end of their friendship.
Soon after, in 1935, Ralph and his mother were forced out of their homes and into the Jewish quarters. Ralph also had to attend a Jewish school.
To this day, I don't know how my mother made the decision to leave. Most people thought that the rise of Hitler would blow over, that his words were empty, and that he couldn't possibly follow through with such crazy ideas. But she had the foresight. She saw the writing on the wall.
Oh, Manfred, what should we do? Why aren't you here to help us? Should we leave for America? Not many people are leaving or even want to leave. They keep saying it will get better and just to be patient and wait and see how it all plays out. But I have this feeling in the pit of my stomach and it's not going away. I can't sleep and I'm barely eating. I think something bad is going to happen. Why did you have to leave us so soon? What would you do?
And then one day,
pack your bags, Ralph. We're getting on a boat and leaving for America.
America? For good? Are Oma and Opa coming?
No one is coming. It's just us.
But how will we...
Ralph, we must work on packing and straightening up the house now. We received an affidavit from your cousin who lives in New York. He will take care of us. Germany is not safe for Jews anymore. We will build a new life in America.
Just like that, the decision was made. Ralph and his mother left on a boat to America.
Mama, why are there signs everywhere that say no tuxedos? Look, are tuxedos forbidden in America?
Ralph later found out that tuxedo in German meant smoking in English. No smoking.
Oh.
But most of all, Ralph remembers lying on the deck of the boat, deep in thought, staring into the ocean, wondering if his father would have made the same decision to leave America.
Dad, I don't know where you are, or if you can even hear me. But do you think we're making the right decision? Do you think it will blow over? Would you have left? I guess I'll never know.
This question would forever gnaw at Ralph.
Be to a place where all day long they're praising your name and they're singing your song. 'Cause it's there I belong, and it's there I want to be.
Once they arrived in America, Ralph and his mother waited for their cousin to pick them up. He never showed.
This was the first of many things he didn't show up for.
Are you kidding me? He did nothing for us.
In all fairness, he did provide the affidavit for Ralph and his mother to come to America.
And he paid for the first 3 months of rent in New York. He was a wealthy New York lawyer. But after that, Bupkis!
We were on our own. I went to school and was put in a class with 6-year-olds, even though I was 10. I remember the kids saying, I got laughed at every day. It was not easy, but I learned English quickly. My mother tried to find work, first as a nanny, then as a beautician, and finally in a packing factory. My mom must have felt so alone during these times. She also knew that things had gotten awful in Germany and was no longer able to communicate with her parents.
But she just put one foot in front of the other. She was determined to make a life for herself and Ralph.
When Ralph was 13, he had his bar mitzvah. They invited their cousin in hopes that they would finally see him. But all they received was a $25 check and a note declining their invitation.
By this point, she was so angry, she wanted nothing to do with him. So she sent the money back.
You think we need your money? What are we? Your charity case? You feel sorry for us. We don't need your stinking money. We are doing just fine by ourselves.
The truth is, they did need the money. And $25 was a lot back then. But they needed people who were supportive and loving even more. And if their cousin couldn't give them that, they certainly were not going to take his pity money.
As time moved on, Ralph's mom remarried.
When the war ended, they found out that both sets of Ralph's grandparents had been taken to Theresienstadt and murdered. All of the Jews, all of them were murdered.
Ralph daydreams often of the what-ifs.
These questions have gnawed at him for years.
What if his father had lived?
What if his father had wanted to stay in Germany?
Would his mother have agreed?
What if his mother listened to all the people who said,
"This will blow over"?
Would he have gone to serve in the war?
Would he have gone to become a photographer?
Would he have met his wife Giegi?
Would he have gone on to have 2 kids and 4 grandkids?
Would he have survived?
Would he? In 1990, the German government called, inviting Ralph and his wife Giegi back to Germany.
Are you kidding me? Ha! I wouldn't step foot on your murderous soil.
A year later, they called back and asked again. This time, Ralph said yes. for one reason and one reason only. He wanted to visit his father's grave.
Locating his father's grave was harder than expected. It took days, but finally, on their last day in Germany, Ralph and his wife Giegi found the grave.
Ralph, look, that's it. It was all covered in dirt and branches, but we cleaned it up, made it look nice, and put flowers on it.
Hi, Dad. I have so many questions. I'm so glad I found you.
Even though these are questions that Ralph will never be able to answer, we support him and hold them together.
My name is Ralph Strauss. I came to America as a little boy and later served in the United States Army overseas. I was happy to put my life on the line for a country that was behind me. I met my future wife Giegi at a temple on 89th Street in Manhattan. We were married in 1953 and have been together for 64 years and counting. I started my own business in advertising as a commercial photographer and was able to provide a good life for my family.
Lisa was born on July 28, 1938, in Leningrad, Russia.
Just a few years before the war began.
Lisa and her older brother Boris only had a few years to spend with their birth mother and father. Lisa's father was sent to fight in war early on in her life.
And her mother died of starvation when Lisa was only 3.
Hunger and starvation. This was my war.
At that time, the people of Leningrad went to desperate measures to survive.
People had no choice if they wanted to live. They captured dogs and cats, and, well,
there was just no other option.
I'm so hungry.
It smells so good.
They needed to eat, so Lisa's grandmother would catch wild cats.
She was able to find some cabbage in the field and would make a stew with these ingredients.
This was common, and by the end of the war, there were no living or dead animals.
In 1941, Lisa and Boris left Leningrad and stayed east of Moscow in an orphanage until the end of the war.
When they returned to Leningrad in 1945, they found out that their father had been killed in battle. They then went to live with their grandmother and aunt, who eventually adopted and raised them.
The war was over, but sickness and starvation was worse than people had ever imagined.
Every day, our grandmother would give Boris and me a small piece of bread as we walked to school. In the street, People looked like walking corpses, so sick, so malnourished.
Even the German soldiers who remained there were starving.
Please, excuse me, please. I haven't eaten a week, and my friend can barely move. May we have your bread?
This moment burns bright in Lisa's memory.
Nazis who were starving and begging for food, begging to live. Lisa thought,
they killed my parents, and now I share my bread with them.
This happened multiple times a week for months. They would see her and ask,
please, please.
And again, the thought,
they killed my parents, and now I share my bread.
This is what happens in war. Everyone suffers. No one wins.
Even though Lisa and Boris lived with and felt loved by their grandmother and aunt, they still thought about their birth parents.
After the war was over, Lisa and Boris went back to visit their childhood apartment where they had been raised as kids.
When they entered, the apartment was in disarray. Everything was gone, besides for 2 items.
The wooden crocodile is still here. Boris, remember when we used to play with it?
Wow. I can't believe it. And what's this? Lisa, look. It's got Dad's handwriting all over it.
We had found a picture of 12 children, and written over the first child was my father's handwriting. It said, Boris, 1937, the year he was born. And over the second name, it said Lisa, 1938, the year I was born. There were 10 children in the photograph, waiting to be born.
Proof that her father had wanted a big family.
But life only gave him time for 2, and they only spent a few short years with him.
Years that are now a blur.
I can hardly remember Mom and Dad.
Neither can I.
Life after the war continued to be tough, and food was always limited.
The anti-Semitism only got worse, which meant Lisa had to work harder to prove herself.
She was graded unfairly and encouraged to say she was Russian instead of Jewish.
But I was proud of being Jewish and determined to be successful. I finally got my master and PhD in chemistry and worked hard for the career that I always wanted.
The war taught Lisa that the most important part of life is human connection and kindness to others.
Okay. It's not only my story, it's a story of my generation from Russia. And I will always remember these people whose courage, self-denial, and kindness helped me to survive. I try to follow their principles. I have a daughter, a grandson, and great-granddaughter. These people are the dearest part of my life.
What does it mean to just blindly follow?
You will believe in this.
You will behave like this.
You will say this.
This is what you will eat.
This is how you will breathe.
This is how you will live.
And this is how you'll feel.
Right? This is Anne's message to you. But first, let's go back a bit.
Anne was born in Frankfurt, Germany in 1925. She grew up in a large house with her father, mother, and brother Peter.
Anne spent her younger years enjoying life, going on vacations with her family and spending time with friends.
As a child, Anne remembers looking at the Stürmer magazine. It was based on Nazi propaganda and anti-Semitism. The paper would have cartoons on the cover like Jews with enormous noses.
I was too young to really understand what this meant.
However, a bit later, she started to feel that Jews were hated by some.
Hi, my name is Anne, and I'm selling cookies for my school.
Excuse me, but aren't you that Jew girl who lives up the street?
I do live up the street, but I was just trying...
I wouldn't give you Jews a penny. Now get away from my home.
November 9th, 1938, Kristallnacht.
The night of broken glass, when most Jewish homes, businesses, and synagogues were vandalized and burnt. 30,000 Jewish men were taken that evening and sent to camps.
Anne was upstairs reading when she heard a loud knock. She looked downstairs and saw several brown shirts.
Where is your husband? He must come with us at once.
Can I just pack his suitcase?
No.
Can I at least send him with a blanket?
Nothing.
He was taken to Buchenwald concentration camp.
Luckily, he returned home 3 weeks later, but he was barely recognizable. He had lost weight, smelled from being in the same clothes, and had no energy.
When he saw us, he wept.
A few months later, in April of 1939, he got on a train to England and left Germany.
In August of that same year, it was decided that I would travel on the Kindertransport to England. Even though my brother Peter could have left, he stayed to help my mom, though hopefully we'd meet up later.
The Kindertransport,
an organized rescue effort from Great Britain.
It would be responsible for bringing in over 10,000 Jewish children,
ages 17 and under.
Britain would place these children in foster homes, boarding schools, and hostels.
Great Britain was the only country to let in this number of Jewish refugees' children.
This was the last time the majority of the children would see their parents.
An early morning in August 1939, both Anne's mother and aunt took her to the train station.
It's time, Anne. The train will leave without you.
I can't go yet. Where's my mom?
She went to get you magazines for the trip.
But I already...
Come, Anne.
I need to say goodbye.
There's no time. You have to get on the train.
But... I just couldn't say goodbye.
When Anne arrived in England, she stayed with her father for a week, but then left for boarding school and lived with 25 upper-class English girls.
The girls would often gather in the large living room and listen to news reports and updates from Germany. But whenever Anne entered the room,
She's coming, turn the radio off. I think they thought that it would upset me, but I felt optimistic.
Anne felt hopeful about reuniting with her mother and brother. She was out of Germany and sheltered from what was happening.
Once in England, Anne's father worked hard at getting her mother and brother out.
I even went to the Rothschilds who lived close by and asked them if they could sponsor my wife and son. But they had already done this for too many people.
Anne remembers the last letter she received from her mother.
The letter was casual. She wished me a happy birthday and didn't seem particularly worried. I still have the letter.
Then, in January of 1940, Anne and her father's quota was called, and they left for a boat to America.
So we just built a life in America. I attended school and tried to move forward.
When the war ended, Anne and her father finally found out what had happened, that many Jews were murdered.
Me and my father never actually had a conversation acknowledging that my mother and brother were murdered. But it slowly creeps in, especially when you hear about the others.
Later, they found out their mother and brother had been taken to Theresienstadt and then to Auschwitz.
Life continued for Anne because, well, she had to keep going.
Anne graduated from Hunter College and met her husband while he was working on his PhD in economics, and they started a family together.
In memory of Anne's mother, brother, and all the lives that were lost,
She wants to remind you not to blindly follow,
To speak up.
To ask questions.
And examine the hate around you.
And most of all, to lead with kindness and compassion.
I'm grateful to the United States for allowing my father and me to come to this country, to be able to graduate from Hunter College and to work as a histologist, first for New York University and then for Columbia Presbyterian. However, I feel that the United States should have been more humane and generous in the 1930s so that my whole family and many others could have been saved. While England was not much better, they allowed children from the Kindertransport into their country, which saved my life. I was happily married for 50 years, have a son, Alan, a lawyer, married to Marion, who works at the Hudson River Museum as head of finances and human resources. I also have 2 grandchildren who live in California and are doing well.
We are held captive by our longing for belonging, desperate for its sweet caress of validation, terrified of its cruel scorn of rejection. We frantically approach one another in its pursuit, only to be disappointed, or far worse, a disappointment. So we begin to shield ourselves, acutely attuned to our own unworth, idolizing those who seem to recognize it as well. If they would just let us in. Only when we take our armor down, approach one another out of love, and give ourselves the validation we crave, will we finally receive the acceptance we have always longed for. Belonging begins within.
I think I've spent my entire life searching for how to belong within.
Liesel was born in Vienna in 1925. She lived with her older sister Irene, mother and father. Liesel came from a middle-class family where she had many Jewish and non-Jewish friends. Her parents were kind and loving, especially her father.
Growing up, Liesel had a maid and a part-time nanny named Annie, who she loved. Annie would always say,
"If you ever need anything in life, Liesel, just let me know."
Liesel had a happy childhood, but around 1937, she felt a shift. Her sense of belonging was disrupted.
Liesel would spend time with her good friend Herbert, who lived next door. He was half Jewish. They would often go swimming together, until one day.
They won't let me swim?
Come on, Liesel, let's go.
No, Herbert, you swim. I'll wait here until you're done.
Liesel, if they don't let you swim, I'm not swimming either. I won't go without you.
Herbert was a good friend, and they loved each other dearly.
But Liesel could feel it all around her. Things were changing. Out of the blue, her best friend Greta stopped walking to school with her and started acting strange.
You're just a dirty Jew, Liesel. Get away from me.
Greta! In 1937, Liesel's father was pushed out of his own business by his business partner's sons, who were Nazis.
And in March of 1938, Hitler annexed Austria.
I'll never forget the Germans marching in. They wore helmets that covered their ears and most of their face. They looked like monsters. People threw flowers, fruit, and waved Nazi flags.
Don't be scared, Liesel. They're just marching through.
But they weren't just marching through. They were there to stay. And after this, things changed rapidly.
A few months later, it was decided that Liesel would go to Czechoslovakia and stay with her grandmother and favorite aunt, despite not having her own passport.
The only documentation she had was her birth certificate.
I was in Czechoslovakia for 9 months. So much happened during this time.
At first, things were fine, but not having a passport became increasingly problematic, especially when Liesel's family in Czechoslovakia started to flee. She was becoming a liability for her family.
She finally wrote to her mom.
Dear Mom, I don't know what I should do. Everyone is planning to escape. Uncle Arnold is leaving for England, and he said it's too dangerous to take me because I don't have a passport. I'll be left here to die.
Dear Liesel, you are not going to die. I have been able to secure you a spot on the Kindertransport. But it leaves from Vienna, which means you must find a way to stay in Misslitz for the night. Speak with the Gestapo and get permission to return to Vienna.
April 1939, she carried the only documentation she had, her birth certificate.
Gestapo headquarters, Liesel's first attempt.
What do you want?
I need a permit to travel to Vienna.
No time for that today. Come back next week and speak louder next time.
Attempt number 2.
You again. You'll have to come back with the photograph.
Attempt number 3.
We are too busy. No time for you. Come back tomorrow.
Attempt number 4.
Let's go. You think we have all day? You only brought 1 picture.
You were supposed to bring 2.
The Gestapo asked for different things every time. Liesel traveled for 3.5 weeks and to get back to Vienna.
Liesel's final attempt.
Name of your father, what does he do?
Name of your mother, what does she do?
Are they leaving Austria? Where are they going?
Where's your father? He was in Dachau?
Why was he in Dachau?
He was deported there after Kristallnacht.
He must have done something.
I don't think so.
What do you mean you don't think so?
What newspaper did he read?
Did he belong to an organization?
Was he a member of a club?
I don't know.
You don't know? Looks like you don't know very much.
No permit for Vienna.
Then please, can I have a permit to travel to Nuremberg and join the Kindertransport there?
What are we, a travel agency? Don't you know that a Jew who has left the country can't return?
Yes, I know, and I don't want to go back there ever again.
You're going to answer us back? You know what we do with kids like you.
And in that moment, a miracle happened. The power went out. Liesel grabbed her birth certificate and ran out as fast as she could.
Feeling completely hopeless, Liesel wrote her mother again.
I tried and I tried, but I can't get anywhere with the Gestapo here. They absolutely refuse to allow me to go back to Vienna for even 1 night. I can't join the Kindertransport. What's going to happen to me?
Her mom had an idea.
Annie!
If you ever need anything in life, Liesel, just let me know.
During this time, Annie had married a man who had a high position in the Nazi Party.
Annie made good on her promise, and a permit arrived to Liesel within a few days.
Be polite, be a good girl, learn and study, okay? Do everything that me and your father have always taught you to. Write to us and ask if your father can come to England.
I love you.
I love you too.
Lalita Devi
traveled for 2.5 days and remembered people feeling hopeful and excited for what the future would bring.
Liesel arrived at the Liverpool train station in England on May 16, 1939.
She watched as all the children got picked up and wondered what her new family would look like.
She waited and waited and waited, and then started to panic.
What if no one picks me up? I don't have any money. I don't know the language. I don't know anyone. Will I be left to die? What's gonna happen?
Liesel Steiner? I'm Miss Harder.
She was tall, older than I expected, and came from an upper-class Gentile family. She did not hug me, though I desperately needed one.
This was the beginning of Liesel's new life. She lived in a 17-room house with a staff of 4 people. And although free of the Nazis, she was unhappy. The years ahead were hard.
Liesel was homesick. Despite being taken care of physically, she did not receive the emotional support she craved.
She wanted comfort.
She wanted to be accepted.
She wanted to feel like she finally belonged somewhere. And it took a while, but eventually their relationship did change.
Finally, her mom came to England, and after 6 years, they took a boat to America and reunited with her father. And Liesel's sister had safely made it to Palestine.
Despite surviving, the Holocaust left me thinking about where it is that I belong. What does it mean to belong, and why is it so important for people? And so, I've spent much of my life helping others answer this question as well.
I had been fully integrated in England, and starting a new life in New York City became a challenge. I found work as a secretary, attended City College in the evening, and met my husband in the Catskills. He was American, a lawyer, but preferred working as a labor management arbitrator. I have 2 children, a daughter and a son, who are smart, happy, and compassionate. I have 5 lovely grandchildren, ages 10 to 22. It was my oldest grandson who pushed me into writing my memoirs. When I decided I wanted a career, not just a job, I finished my education at a local university, earned a master's degree in family relations at Columbia, and a second master's in social work in order to work. Having lived in 3 countries and traveling a great deal made me aware of different values and customs in other cultures. In my retirement, I have often spoken about the Holocaust, also in Germany. I conclude by saying, never again is fine, but it's not enough. What can each one of us try to do to prevent this from happening again? Be tolerant and accepting of other people who may not look like you, dress or act like you. Do not be prejudiced or intolerant. 2 characteristics that are learned, we're not born with them, but combined with lies, they lead to hatred, violence, and genocide. Basically, we're all the same. We all feel happy or sad, and we all want to be loved and have a feeling of belonging.
Elvina was born in Romania in 1934.
She came from a family with deep Jewish beliefs. Her grandfather was the son of a famous Jewish rabbi, Samuel Marcus.
When Elvina's mother shared that she would not keep a kosher home, Elvina's grandfather protested.
Not keep a kosher house? Absurd. The children will come to our house for every meal, and the cook will make food for them as well.
Elvina came from a wealthy family and therefore was respected despite being Jewish. At that time, 90% of the Jews were living on the poverty line.
We always grew up with a deep sense of Jewish pride, no matter how much we were disliked.
Both Elvina's grandfathers and father were businessmen and were able to provide a very comfortable life for Elvina, her mother, and older brother, which included maids, cooks, nannies, and large homes.
But in 1940, their big world became much smaller. Their father was taken to a labor camp as Germany decided to occupy Romania.
They also decided to occupy our home. From 1940 to 1944, we lived under the same roof as Romanian Nazis.
This house looks pretty nice. All right, gentlemen, unpack your bags and welcome to your new home.
I was 5 at the time, so I really didn't know what was going on.
All right, kids. We have some people staying with us now.
Who are they?
How long will they stay?
Where will they sleep?
There's a lot of them.
We will be sharing a home with them, and I'm not sure for how long. But for right now, Elvina and Marcel will bring both of your beds into the kitchen.
What?
That's where we'll be sleeping, together in the kitchen. You could bring a few toys also, but no matter what happens, you both need to keep quiet. Don't speak with them. Just come into the house through the back door and stay out of their way.
So that's how we lived for 3 years. We were invisible.
Sometimes they were so loud we could barely even sleep.
During the first 2 years, the Germans were winning, so often they celebrated.
Loud parties full of drinking, singing, and random women in our house. We were invisible in our own home. They never spoke to us, not even once.
But then in 1944, the Russians came, and little by little, the Germans began to lose. The parties stopped, and they eventually moved out of their home completely.
We were so terrified and not sure what to do, so we just stayed together in the kitchen. By this point, it was what we were used to.
Bombs and cannons went off regularly. They attended school in the basement of their synagogue.
In 1944, it was decided that Elvina's brother Marcel would be bar mitzvah despite the dangers of the war.
ואתה תצווה בני ישראל ויקחו אליך שמן זית זך כתית למאור לעלות נר תמיד.
All right, Marcel, let's keep going.
Let's just say, it wasn't a catered event.
In 1944, they were liberated by the Russians, and Elvina's father returned home from the labor camp. It should have been a happy time.
My father was a completely different man after he returned. His personality had changed entirely. He became quiet and introverted. He spent most of his free time taking walks in the garden, or reading books, or just wanting to be alone. what happened to my father during those 3 years in the concentration camps. We never found out. And he never told us. All I knew is that I missed my father. I wanted him back.
Despite being liberated, it was terrible. They were ignored by the Romanians and the Germans, and now the Russians wanted to kill them.
When my father arrived home, he convinced us to move out of the kitchen to reclaim our entire house.
But it was hard for them to feel safe. And in 1947, it got even worse.
The Communist Party took over. 20 years of prison is what it felt like. We were puppets. The state controlled every aspect of our private and personal life. We waited in long lines for hours to get the food and clothing we needed. We all wore the same thing. We weren't allowed to be our own person. My family was not part of the Communist Party, so there was hell to pay.
Despite Elvina and her brother being educated and highly qualified, she was sent to teach in places with no electricity and dirt floors. And Elvina's brother went from having a job in economics to carrying potatoes in the market.
Factory workers who believed in the Communist Party became engineers overnight. And engineers who did not believe in the Communist Party became factory workers.
The Communist Party imprisoned both my father and my grandfather for their Zionist beliefs. As a result, neither were able to attend my wedding, nor my brother's. My family and I needed to leave. We couldn't live like this. I specifically chose a career in mathematics because I knew it was one of the few jobs I could take to any country. So, in 1960, I met my husband, and it was decided that we would both be escaping the communist life.
So in 1963, Elvina and her husband tricked the government by attempting to fly to Brazil, but first making a stop at Vienna.
Once in Vienna, Elvina's husband grabbed her hand, looked her in the eye, and said, "Ready? Run!" They ran out of the holding area in the airport without their luggage or passports into a cab and asked the cab driver to take them to HaShoah, an organization that helps refugees. At HaShoah, they begged them to listen to why they were escaping the communist life.
They took pity on Elvina and her husband, so they issued visas for them to go to Italy. After 7 months in Italy, they received visas for America.
In 1964, we arrived in America, first class. But that's a whole nother story. Finally, we were free. But we couldn't have done it without hard work, education, or a lot of willpower.
I married Adolf Lenz in Romania in 1960, also a survivor from Bukovina, Romania. In the United States, I work in Wall Street for Citigroup. I have a daughter born in 1967 and 3 grandsons. My education helped me and my family to get a good life. I enjoy traveling all over the world with my American passport.
Gita was born in 1921 in Oslo, Norway. Her nickname was Giegi, which is what all her sisters used to call her.
Giegi and her sisters were extremely close. Whatever they did together. Sledding, skiing, skating, you name it. They depended on each other, and their bond was special.
There was Dora the oldest, then Mona, Olga, Giegi, Sarah, and Judy, the youngest.
The radio was new in the 20s, so we'd spend hours listening to the children's program. We'd all put on our glass headphones and take turns wiggling the knob. We listened to the radio for hours.
Giegi and her sisters were close with both of their parents. Their mother would spend the majority of the time home preparing meals, while their father would take them out shopping for anything they needed.
We didn't live over the top, but we had everything we needed. We had each other, which was most important.
Most of their friends weren't Jewish. There weren't many Jews in Oslo, but the girls were raised with a strong Jewish heritage.
As time moved on, Giegi and her family were aware of Hitler rising to power, but they just thought,
there's no way that Hitler's going to invade Norway.
We're not even a wealthy country.
We keep a low profile.
And we're neutral.
But on April 9th, 1940, German forces did invade Norway, and all Jews were forced to register.
Jews stopped going to synagogues, and many planned to escape.
During this time, my sister Olga got married. Olga's husband decided that they would leave for Sweden, but before they left, he said,
"If things get worse, here's a number to the resistance. They will help you."
And in October of 1942, things did get worse. They began arresting men.
And one night, they came for my father.
Where is your father? We have a warrant for his arrest. He needs to come with us at once.
Please! You cannot take my husband! He's just had a heart attack. The ambulance is on its way now to pick him up.
Please, let my father go to the hospital.
He's sick. If he doesn't go, he will die.
Please! We'll be back.
Call an ambulance at once.
My father had not actually had a heart attack, but he did have a history of having a weak heart. It was the only thing my mother could think of at the time.
The ambulance came that evening and took their father to the hospital. He stayed there for a month until one day they received a phone call from the hospital.
The Nazis had come to take him away. The whole family rushed to the hospital.
When we arrived, they were carrying him on a stretcher.
Enough! He's coming with us.
They carried him out on the stretcher and took him to the Gestapo headquarters.
He didn't have any warm clothes, so it was decided that Dora, Mona, and I would get him clothing while my mother stayed home with Judy and Sarah.
The girls handed over the clothes and sat at the Gestapo headquarters for hours, wondering,
what's going to happen to him?
Do you think they'll let him go?
Do you think we're next?
At 11:00 p.m., they realized that their father would not be released. So they told the Gestapo that they would be back in the morning to see their father.
And where do you think you're going?
We're going home.
You're not going anywhere.
But we weren't arrested. We came here on our own.
Take a seat. Call for transportation.
Transportation? Transportation where?
Where are they going to take us?
There's no transportation at this time, sir.
Be back tomorrow morning. Do not make us come looking for you.
After saying goodbye to their father and promising to return in the morning, the girls darted out. The streets were pitch black by this point. As they walked, they began to realize they were being followed.
I think we're being followed.
Children, I'm sorry if I scared you, but I saw you coming out of the Gestapo headquarters. I want to help you. You see, I know what's awaiting you in the morning.
What are you talking about?
Tomorrow morning, they will be rounding up all the Jews and taking them to Germany. But I can help. I need to know if you have any connections with the resistance that will help you escape.
Oh, no. We have no plans for escaping.
No?
You don't know anybody who could help you? Come on, think about it. Well, if you absolutely can't think of anybody, then I have a connection. But you must come with me now.
We already told you. We're not interested in escaping. Our father is sick and our mother is home, and we need to get back to them now.
But she wouldn't stop. Over and over again, she would ask,
Are you sure you can't think of anybody who could help you escape?
I'm sorry, ma'am, but it's late and we need to get home.
God bless you.
As they continued walking, they realized for the second time.
We're still being followed. Okay, we need to split up.
It was decided that Mona and Giegi would stay together and Dora would go on her own.
Mona and Giegi jumped in a cab and headed home.
When they arrived, they noticed two men outside their home pacing back and forth. So they were dropped off 2 blocks away.
We decided to laugh, pretending to be different people coming home from a party.
Once they arrived back at home,
Mama, we must get out of here. They were planning on rounding up all the Jews in the morning and taking us to Germany.
Where's Dora?
We had to split up. We were being followed.
No, this can't be happening. It's not true. Let's just wait until the morning.
The morning will be too late. We will die if we wait.
We must wake up Judy and Sarah. Tell them to put on warm clothes.
As they gathered their belongings, an air raid began. They all ran to the basement to seek shelter. In the basement, they noticed a tunnel that connected them to the outside. Once passing through and reaching the streets, they made a plan to go to Mona's friend's home. There, they met back up with Dora.
they stayed for a few hours, but ultimately the family was too afraid to let them stay for long.
I then remembered Miss Larson. She owned a flower shop and expressed compassion for Norwegian Jews. I don't remember how I got her number, but I called, and it was late. Miss Larson?
Yes?
It's Giegi. I was thinking about bringing over 5 bottles of wine and having a party.
The door will be open.
Miss Larson let us stay the night. I'm convinced we would have died if it weren't for her.
That evening, from out the window, they saw Jews being put on flatbeds and taken.
It's true. They're all being taken. Girls, I need to find your father. I need to be with him.
Mama, what are you talking about? You can't leave us.
He's alone, and he's probably scared. And
Mama, we need you.
We can't lose both of our parents. No.
That evening, the girls begged, pleaded, and cried hysterically for their mother to stay. Finally, they convinced her.
In the morning, they remembered their sister Olga's husband, who had given them the contact number to the resistance. After calling and making arrangements of how they would escape, it was decided that they needed to separate. The 2 youngest sisters, Judy and Sarah, would leave first. The plan was to get them on a train to Sweden.
The rest of them were picked up in a cab and taken on a flatbed truck. They were joined by another woman and her son. They drove for hours. Once they arrived, they were told they could stay in a cabin overnight. The resistance would return in a few days.
A few days later, the resistance came and moved us to another cabin. Over the next 7 months, the resistance moved us to multiple cabins in the woods, trying to get us closer to Sweden.
And one day, in 1942, they were told by the resistance that it was time to cross the border to Sweden. The group piled on flatbed trucks with a tarp covering their bodies. They traveled for hours, panicking every time the truck would stop, fearing that someone would look underneath and notice them. When they arrived, Giegi could hardly feel her feet.
Come on, Giegi, you must leave now.
I can't move my feet.
What?
I can't move them. They're frozen.
Giegi, you must try.
Mona, I'm so tired. Please just let me die.
No, I'm not letting you stay here. We've come so far. Come on, Giegi. Fight.
Mona helped Giegi up, and together with their mother and Dora, they followed instructions through the markings in the trees. They walked for hours. They were told to keep walking until they saw the lights. Once they saw these lights, they would be in Sweden.
They were given instruction to knock on the door of the second house.
Who's there?
We had made it to Sweden together. It's Norwegian refugees!
Giegi and her family had made it to freedom. They were taken by the police to a Norwegian rescue camp. There, they met back up with Judy and Sarah.
Slowly, they began to rebuild their lives, which was painful and challenging. But they had survived. They had survived because of their bond and unwavering commitment to each other. After the war ended, they found out that their father had boarded a ship to Germany, heading to Auschwitz. A passenger on the ship had survived, and later told Giegi that he had watched her father search the entire boat for his family.
Giegi? Judy? Excuse me? Mona? Oh no. Dora? My wife? Has anyone seen her? Have you seen? Have you seen my family?
I left Norway in 1952 because I could not see a future for the Jewish people there. I lived with my two sisters in New York City. We each found jobs and made a life together. I married my husband Ralph in 1953, and we have two children together. Deborah became a lawyer and Mark a chiropractor. We also have 4 beautiful grandsons. Ralph and I have been married for 64 years.
After living with these stories for months, we offer them to you.
And you. And you.
And you.
Where will you take them?
What will you learn from them?
How will you carry them?
To conclude this morning's program, we're going to call upon representatives from each grade, from our fellows and faculty, to light candles in memory of family members who perished during the Shoah. First, I'd like to call upon Lily Pitkowski.
I'm lighting this candle in honor of my great-grandfather, Moshe Mendel, and his family who perished in the Shoah.
I'd like to call upon Suri Rosensaft.
I am lighting this candle in memory of my cousins from the Farkas and Spitzer families who perished in the Shoah.
I'd like to call up Gavi Kaplan.
I'm lighting this candle in memory of my great-grandfather, Yisachar Dov ben Avraham Meir, who perished in the Shoah.
I'd like to call on Libby Berger-Pessin to light the next candle.
I am lighting this candle in memory of my great-aunts, great-uncles, and cousins of Lodz, Poland, of the Berger and Olstein families who perished in the Shoah.
I'd like to call up Yaakov Ellenbogen to light the next candle.
I'm lighting this candle in memory of my great-grandfather, Hirsch Ellenbogen, who perished in a Romanian labor camp in the Shoah.
I'd like to call on Dr. Steinberg to light the final candle.
I'm lighting this candle in memory of the entire immediate family of my great-uncle Max, the Kolodnys of Pinsk, who perished in the Shoah.
Please rise for the Kelmale, the memorial prayer.
El Mole Rachamim Shochen Bamiromim Hamtzei Menucha Nechona Al Kanfei HaShechina B'mahalos Kedoshim u'teorim Kezohar harakia Mirim u'masirim Linishmas Shisha milyonei Achenu v'nei Yisrael Anoshim, Nashim, Yiladim, Vilados, Shenehergu, Shenishchatu, Shenisrifu, Shenechniku, Vishenitbeu, Vishenikberu Chaim, Bidei Hanatzim V'Yosrehem, Yimach Shemam, Umasu Es Nafsham, Al Kidushas Hashem. Ba'avur She'anu Mispalalim Lilui Nishmosehem Lachen Ba'al Rachamim Yastirem B'Seser Knafav Liolamim B'Yitzror Achayim Es Nishmosehem B'Gan Eden Tehei Menuchasam Adonai Hu Nachalasam V'Yanuchu V'Shalom Al Mishkavam V'Nomar Amen.
Please be seated.
Schedules to say 12:30, not 12:45.
This concludes our program this morning. I want to share with you some other things that are going to be going on today. When we leave here, there will be lunch, but we recognize that this has been a heavy morning, a difficult one, and it might not be so easy to transition back into the day. So beginning at 12:30, we have a number of optional things that will be running concurrent to lunch. There will be a kumsitz with Rabbi Bannett that will take place outside the auditorium balcony on the second floor. There will be an art activity in Art Room 2 with Mr. Wander. There will be a learning session in the Beit Midrash with Ms. Shafransky. There will be a question and answer session here in the auditorium with the survivors who were featured in Witness Theater. Throughout the day on the hour, Rabbi Hartzark will be reading names of family members who perished in the Shoah. In addition, at 3 o'clock, you will hear a siren, much like they sound in Israel. We ask that you stand at attention and reflect, use that as a moment of silence to memorialize and to remember those who did not survive. Also, as you leave today, you'll be given a candle at the end of the day. You can take that candle home and light it, and there's a QR code on that candle that you can scan and learn about a different survivor for each candle.